Right, I wanted to do a video on about how not to get ripped off buying gas masks, because I see a lot of people in the comments sort of saying things where they've had bad experiences. So what I want to try and do in this video is just give you a list of things that you should really look out for when buying a gas mask. And obviously, like I said, if you're buying from somewhere like eBay, you do get buyer's protection, but it's just, this is good advice. Some of this will have definitely been covered in other videos before, but it's worth going over it. So here I have a trusty S10, but I thought I'd go over some of the things and use this just as an example mask, what you might see. So one of the main things I see people say about masks that isn't always true is they say something like new gas mask when it's a mask from, like the Cold War or something. So for example, this S10 is from 1987. Now what the problem is basically, if somebody's honest, they generally say it's second-hand but old stock but might not have been used. If it's definitely one that's been in service, it should be said as used, but what a lot of people do is they just say brand new gas mask, and what they actually mean is it's new old stock. So new old stock is where you have, say, a gas mask, it's been sitting in a warehouse for months, or years, whatever, yeah, years, decades, and it's basically been sold, so they're selling it as new because nobody's used it before, but it's still not new in a sense. It's like if you had a car from the 1980s, it was never used, it was mothballed, and then somebody, got it up and running, and they said it's a new car. Yeah, it might be new as in it's not been used before, but it's not actually a new car, it's a car from the 1980s. So make sure when you're buying gas masks, you know what, really, to avoid getting ripped off, know when the gas masks were around, and then, you'll know if it's a new gas mask or not, or if it's new old stock. So I see that a lot with Russian masks or Soviet masks like GP5s, where people are like, new GP5, it's not new, because it's, they made them during the time of the Soviet Union. I don't think you can really describe the Soviet Union as being a new thing. But there you go. So obviously, my first advice is make sure you know when a mask was made if you're interested in buying it. That way you'll know if the claims are true of it being new or not. Obviously, you can check the rubber stamps on masks, like I said. Most masks somewhere will have a maker's sort of stamp or mould on the rubber that says the year the mask was made. Very important you look at that, especially if somebody's advertising it as a very new mask. As I said, there's been a problem where lots of people have sold Forshida A4 masks made in the 90s and advertised them as brand new masks because the supplier said to all the sellers, these are masks that were made like a year ago, and they duped loads of sellers into, copying the same description. The seller I bought mine from was really good and offered me a partial refund or a full refund. I took a partial refund because I wanted to keep the mask. But, obviously the person who had supplied everyone, the supplier, had lied about the year of production on the masks, and nobody had actually opened the mask and checked the date stamp on the side of the mask to know when it was made. So again, if you're buying a mask, make sure when you get the mask you check it and make sure it corresponds with what the person selling it has said. Right, another thing is make sure you know where the mask actually originates from, because quite often I've seen, descriptions on eBay and places where somebody's telling complete lies or has no idea what the mask is and says stupid stuff. Now, that can work to your advantage. If you're buying a mask that's sort of semi-rare or expensive, sometimes people won't know what a rare mask is and they just have a gas mask and they'll just say, like, generic gas mask, and have the wrong name for the gas mask. And they'll be like doing it as a bid or whatever and starting at a very low price. So if you're lucky, you might be able to pick one up for a good value. However, quite often it's the other way round, where somebody has any old mask, they think it's a World War II mask and it's something like a GP5 again, because they're common, and they want a massively inflated price for it. So again, make sure you know where the mask originates from and the year, roughly, of production or period of production. And also, as I was saying, because people often see a gas mask and think a gas mask means World War I or World War II, just because of what a gas mask physically is, not because that respirator is actually from that time period. So they just see a mask and they go, oh, this must be from World War I because it's a gas mask. It doesn't work like that, but there's all stuff like that. Also, I'm saying lots of things just get the nations totally wrong. I've seen, every nation under the sun apply to the wrong nation a gas mask when looking at them online. Again, people just don't do the research when they sell them a lot of the time, see a mask and just assume somehow it's from a certain country. I don't know how that works, but they do it. Another thing is, if the gas masks are being sold in bulk, you can't really tell the condition of an individual mask. But if they're selling one individual mask and they've put a load of photos up, check for the photos and check everything looks okay. Also, very important advice, if you are buying filters through eBay, check if it says if they're expired or not. If it doesn't put anything about the date of a filter, ask the seller a question: when did it expire, or what's the date on the filter? Because some people seem to think they're getting a good deal paying £20 for an expired filter, where, you know, I tell you what, if you want to pay £20 for an expired filter, I'll happily sell you all my old ones in the drawer that won't work, because I could get a load of money that way to fund my mask. But seriously, don't buy expired filters, they're pointless. If an army surplus store has expired sealed filters for like £1 each or $1 each, and yeah, pick some up, see if any still work for non-serious life-threatening things. But do not, you know, spend serious money on expired filters. As I've said before, I don't want to go on about it too much. If you want a filter that's in date, don't generally look for CBRN or NBC filters, because they're military stock. You want to look for ABEC industrial filters that fit the mask you have, because you can buy them brand new from a hardware store. You know, not buying them as like CBRN filters as surplus. The surplus ones are expired, that's why they're on the surplus market. So I think that relatively, you know, wraps everything up, but the main thing I want to go over is, if you're interested in a mask, find out how much the mask should cost, if you can, through Googling the name of the mask, or asking maybe me in the comments. I might have a good idea. But remember, masks depend on supply demand a lot as well. So if you're in a nation where masks are hard to get, the price will be up. For example, if I'm buying an S10 in Britain, the prices are going to be cheaper than buying them elsewhere in the world and having to have them, you know, imported, exported, whatever. And as I was saying, find out when the masks are from, because that way if the seller says they're new, you can make a fuss if they're not actually new masks when you get them. So there's all different things like that you really need to be aware of, but yeah. And also, people like with the S10 like to say things like SAS gas mask. Well, the SAS did use the S10 and the S6 and things like that, but that doesn't mean it's an SAS gas mask. I think some militaria in Britain comes with some kind of signed proof agreement thing, kind of certificate, if it was used in a proper conflict and is being sold as a collector's item. But when people put SAS and all these different buzzwords on a gas mask, that normally is not true. People like to just shove whatever on there because they think it will, you know, get more money for the item, or will have more interest in people buying it. So that's my advice, really. Check the condition of it, check the year of it, you know, check everything adds up, and then Google around, you know, look around to try and get an idea of what the mask should cost you. Don't just go, wow, this seller said it does all these things, and buy it. As I said before, lots of sellers are out to make money, as they should be really, but they do it at the expense of being truthful, which is not good. So what you need to do is, if you're interested in something, do your research on it before you commit to buying it. And remember, if you do buy it from somewhere like eBay, if it does arrive not as advertised, you might be able to get partial refund or a full refund. So bear that in mind if you're not really sure about getting ripped off on buying a gas mask.